like 195 pounds, 6'2" to 140 pounds in like 6-7 weeks. Turns out I have autoimmune disease, had all these digestive and GI problems. I spent 4 years in the hospital fighting for my life. Had 9 surgeries, 4 major abdominal surgeries, 2 emergency life-saving surgeries. Got hooked on opioids in the process. So I finally start to heal. And I was talking to one of my buddies, his name's Tony Marshall. He's an enterprise sales guy. He's been in software for forever. And he's like, man, you should try sales. He's like, you're the most competitive guy I know. You're, stubborn as all hell. You like to win, conversations and arguments and whatnot. You're convincing. You're a captain of the team. Like, if you could figure out sales, I could see you being like a sales leader one day. The part that most people don't know is I was super, super introverted prior to my illness. But once I got through my illness, I kind of realized this is the hardest thing I'm probably ever going to go through in my life. So there's no fucking sense in holding back anymore.
So how you even got into sales? I believe that you started in college is when a friend of yours who you're playing tennis with got you in. Take me back to that journey of, many of the listeners here are individual contributors right now or aspiring sales leaders or early on in their sales leadership career. So, we'd love just for you to share, how did you get from where you are now, from where you were back in the day?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to let everybody know that I actually didn't get started in sales until I was 27 years old. So anybody who's listening, who's 27 years or younger, who's in sales or sales leadership or an entrepreneur already or whatever, you have a huge head start on me. So I want you to just sit with that and give yourself a little pat on the back for that. So, when I was going through school, I was playing 2 sports. I played tennis and soccer in college for 4 years. I was studying religion, studying psychology, didn't do anything in business whatsoever, wasn't doing any sales, literally had no idea how I was ever going to make money. I just was supposed to get a degree and wanted to keep playing sports, really. Right. So I go to grad school because I don't really want to work and I want to seem productive still. So I'm like, oh, let's go to grad school. Right. So I finished my first year of grad school. I come home, visit my family, and I start getting super sick. And this is not like a normal sickness. It spirals really bad. I go from 195 pounds, 6'2" to 140 pounds in 6-7 weeks. Just lost all this weight, started having autoimmune. Turns out I have autoimmune disease, had all these digestive and GI problems. I spent 4 years in the hospital fighting for my life. Hooked up to every machine you could think of, with organs failing, and had 9 surgeries, 4 major abdominal surgeries, 2 emergency life-saving surgeries. Got hooked on opioids in the process. So I finally start to heal, get clean. I'm 27 years old. I just got married at the time and had never really had a job in my life that didn't involve getting paid to play sports or coach youth sports. And I was talking to one of my buddies, his name's Tony Marshall. He's a enterprise sales guy. He's been in software for forever. And he's like, man, you should try sales. He had been in sales for 3 or 4 years, 5 years at this point. He's like, you're the most competitive guy I know. You're, stubborn as all hell. You like to win, conversations and arguments and whatnot. You're convincing. You're a captain of the team. If you could figure out sales, I could see you being a sales leader one day. The part that most people don't know is I was super, super introverted prior to my illness. But once I got through my illness, I kind of realized this is the hardest thing I'm probably ever going to go through in my life. So there's no fucking sense in holding back anymore. And, whoever I was on the athletic field just sort of came out all the time now. So I decided to give it a shot. And, turns out I was pretty good at it and, kind of rose up the ranks as an individual contributor really quickly. Was only an AE for 7-8 months, then got bumped up to a sales manager role. My team started, dominating and broke all the records and all this kind of stuff. Then I was a senior sales manager. Before you knew it, I was running 70 people across 2 offices. And I had like a year and a half of total business experience. So that kind of was the beginning of my career in sales.
So you were only an account executive or a sales rep for 6 or 7 months, and then you got moved up into being a sales leader. Why did you end up making the move so quickly? Was this something that you were aspiring towards yourself, or was it something that like people said, "Hey, Scott, like you're great at what you do. We need you to be teaching and leading other people"? What was the impetus that drove that?
No, it was more me. I realized very quickly that the sales managers around me were more or less worthless, and they weren't coaching, they weren't training. They, just cared about people slamming deals and their own paycheck. And I'm like, this can't be the way that it's supposed to be. So I think I had been a rep for like 3 or 4 months, was the number 1 rep in the company. And keep in mind, I have no business experience and like no finesse whatsoever, no mentor, no coach. This is 20 something years ago, right? So I marched myself into the CEO's office and basically threw the sales managers under the bus. And I was like, they don't really do anything. I figured this out all on my own. I think that I could do a better job than them and help everybody else around me. What do I have to do to get promoted into a leadership role? And the CEO sort of metaphorically slapped me around the room a little bit and gave me a lesson on why my approach was not the right approach. And, they were right. But then they did something interesting. They sort of spelled out the particular steps that I needed to do in order to get this role. So I said, okay, thank you for the medicine. I'll see you in a couple months after I hit all these things. So I go back and I hit all these things, and what happens? But they promote somebody else. And I was pissed, so pissed. This is like 5-6 months into my career journey. I didn't understand at all. I was the best rep. I had done what they said to do. And it was right around Christmas, and I took 2 weeks off, totally shut down. And I was debating leaving and going to get another job. And 2 interesting things happened. The first thing is I got one other interview, and it was this company called ADP that a friend of mine, another former college tennis teammate of mine, was working there. So I go to this meeting at ADP, and I have this interview, and the VP of sales literally tells me that I'll never be any good in sales, and he doesn't see it, and that, he thinks I'm some sort of like quiet anomaly that is only good at this one place and it'll never work. And so that wrecks my confidence to try to go somewhere new. So I go back home and I'm like, well, I guess the only thing I can do is do even better than I've been doing and wait for this new person in the role to fail, because I really think they're going to fail. And I got to make it impossible for them not to promote me the next time. And so that's what happened. I went in, I broke all the records that I had. The person they had promoted in front of me failed out, and then they put me in the role. So at like month 8 or 9 total in business was when I got my first team and was a sales manager. And I wanted to do it because I looked around me and didn't think people were doing what they were supposed to do in that role. And I could tell that I was going to get more joy out of helping other people close deals than I was going to get closing deals myself.